My name is Ruth Müller. I'm a professor of science and technology policy at the Technical University of Munich, and I'm the co-director of the Munich Center for Technology and Society. So my background is pretty interdisciplinary. I started out as a molecular biologist, and I was always very interested in understanding how does life work, how does biology work, how does the body work. But as I was studying, I was becoming more and more interested also in understanding what does the new scientific knowledge that we gain, for example, about our bodies, health, life itself, what does it do in society? How does it change? And so I became really interested in this connection between science, scientific knowledge, new technologies, and society. If we enter a laboratory and put on a white coat, we don't leave society behind, right? We bring social context into the laboratory. And of course, scientific method tries to create types of knowledge that is as objective as possible. But if we look into the history of science, we can very clearly see that research is always shaped by the social, political, and historical contexts in which it is conducted. And the same goes, of course, for technologies, right? What do we even perceive as problems for which we should develop a technological solution? So I gradually shifted into the social science in a field that's called science and technology studies, which is exactly a social science field that looks at this interplay between science, technology, and society. For example, if we investigate a new disease, what are our conceptions of the social context of that illness that go into the research that we're conducting? And so COVID has really shown us how deadly the inequality is. The people who were most affected by the pandemic and who had a higher risk of being exposed to the virus, of contracting the virus, of dying from the virus, were also the people who were socioeconomically deprived, who were in marginalized positions within society. And this is, of course, a question of race, gender, ethnicity, migration status, and all of these issues. If we want to become more resilient as a society to pandemics, we need to start to act against these incredible wealth inequalities. Nutrition is a complex topic, right? We can think about it as certain molecules that enter the body, like disembodied from social context, or we can think about it as a social and political issue. What kinds of food do I have access to? How is food priced in society? What kind of food do I get if I eat in a cafeteria or get a school lunch? So what we try to do in our research is to always put questions of social justice, environmental justice, health equity front and center. So it's a key lens through which we think about issues. For us, it's very interesting to see how this research about the very important impact of food is also creating, in a sense, an understanding of what food is and how it is connected to social contexts, right? So that would be an example of research that I find very important because it's very strongly connected to questions of social justice and equity as well. And I think it's very important that in more research fields and also fields of commercial activity, we learn to think through this lens first and not put these things as an afterthought. Here we have our product. Oh, how could we now maybe change it a little bit so that it might have a positive impact for disadvantaged groups? No, think through that first and think about what products could I develop that could make our society more just and more equitable. Another topic that we've been working on over the last few years is the topic of microplastic. And as plastic degrades, it forms smaller and smaller particles that distribute in the air, in the soil, in the water. And there's a question looming at the moment if these particles could have environmental and health effects as they're leaking different kinds of toxins, for example. What's really interesting here is to think about how questions of responsibility are negotiated around the issue of plastics and microplastics. One thing that we've seen, we did an analysis, for example, of newspaper reporting about microplastics in Germany in the last 2 decades. And one thing that we've seen is that it's usually the people that are being addressed as those who should be responsible to now avoid plastic and to avoid microplastics. However, in a sense, they are the weakest link in really changing the situation. So the amount of plastic that people actually can put back into the recycling circle, in a sense, very small, but not because of their fault, but because of plastic manufacturing, still manufacturing so much plastic that can't be recycled. So we often, and plastic is a very interesting example here, find discourses of responsibility in society that charge the citizens and the consumers with the responsibility to solve a problem that is way too big for them to solve, that can only be solved through political regulation and through corporate action. And here I think it's very important that corporations start thinking about their long-term responsibility. We know where the issues are, and of course there's a lot of things where we need to do more research to understand the finer effects, right? But that doesn't mean that we have to wait until we understand every detail of a problem before we can act. It is up to policymakers, but also companies and corporate leaders to create that kind of environment where we can all make these decisions in a positive way. There is no time to wait. I think my purpose that motivates my work is really to bring scientists, technology developers, and different members of the public, different stakeholders into a conversation about how science and technology can contribute to society in a positive way. So we need to act on these issues now.